Give everybody a couple minutes here to hop on. Penny, are we going to be live?
No, I was just getting ready to say we can't stream live because we would bump Tyler's streaming of the council meeting that starts at 4.
Oh,
So I'm recording this Teams meeting, and he will post that link tomorrow after I get him the link.
Okay.
hey Eddie, since people can't watch this, AJ wanted to watch this and chip in a little bit, but now he can't do it because he can't stream it live. I've got him on speakerphone just so he can listen in as well and might have a comment along the way.
You said that's Richard?
AJ,
AJ. Okay.
if we get a quorum.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 3 right now. And I believe 4 is a quorum. Is that correct?
Well, we're an 8-member body.
5 would be a quorum, wouldn't it?
Majority of a quorum.
I don't know. Is 4 a quorum or is 5 a quorum? Dale? That's a good question. I've only dealt with 7 and 9 members. I've never dealt with 8.
Yeah, 8's an odd number. I'm not sure. Well, let me just Google that for a second here, see if I can find an answer. The majority would be 5. So that's a quorum. So I guess 3 would be sufficient. I don't know for sure, but. Yeah, we'd need 5 according to what I'm looking at.
Okay.
5 to have a quorum.
Yeah, that's what I'm just told it off of the online post. I don't know if that's definitive or I assume that's pretty, what's this from? This is from WikiHow, but so if you have 8 board members, a majority would be 5, while a minority would be 3. Therefore, in this example, you'd need 5 people to have a quorum. I'm thinking that's probably right, that it's a.
Yeah, that seems pretty standard. So.
Yeah. The 5 body would need 3 members to have a quorum, and so it would have to be more.
are we able to approve the minutes and everything from last time with 3, or do
No,
we?
you can't. You can't convene the meeting unless you have.
Can't do really anything.
Okay.
I'd give them 5 minutes and. Well, maybe if the park board gets 2 more members added at its December meeting, maybe the next time we meet, we'll have a full complement to start with.
How did the park board meeting go, Dale?
I was out of town in Manhattan. I tried to join it by Zoom. It wouldn't let me. I watched it live. It was pretty uneventful. Yeah, I noticed you were gone too. Tori was chaired it. There really wasn't anything of consequence that took place. Mr. Hauptman could probably give you a better answer.
I saw Troy on here a moment ago, but I'm not sure if he's still on.
Oh, I saw TH. That's Mr. Hendricks.
Well, we can give him a few minutes, and if a
Yeah.
couple more hop on, great. If not, what do you guys suggest we do?
Well, I don't know if is it appropriate to at least have a discussion about the cart rental part to make some progress on that. Is that I don't know why we couldn't. We can't take any official action because we don't have a quorum, but if just to clarify where we are, and that'd be
Yeah.
useful. And that's what AJ's interest is in. And
Okay, we've got staff here.
I think we can do that and at least get the information. We can give our opinions. Since we can't take any binding action anyway. Even if we had a quorum, it's not binding. It's still just a recommendation.
no, if we had a quorum, you can make an official decision.
Yeah, but it's not binding on anybody. This group doesn't have the power to be binding on anything.
Yeah, if we had everybody here, that'd be the case.
Even if we had everybody, Dale, doesn't matter what we do, it's not binding. It's just a recommendation no matter what we do.
Just a pessimist, you know. Here, I'm trying out what I thought was a senior shaft driver from Gulf headquarters, and I looked it up, and it's a regular shaft with a Maverick head. You ever hit that?
No, my
Yep.
brother has.
I'm just trying to find those 30 yards I lost in the last 3 years.
Me too.
I tell you, I bought a new set of irons that did give me an extra 10 to 12 yards.
What did you buy?
And I bought the TaylorMade Sim Max.
Really?
And they are very forgiving and they are very much longer. I'm back to really 4 or 5 years ago, distance wise, or maybe even a little more.
That new technology is something else.
Yeah, that's the only reason I did it. I didn't want to, but my son had been investigating it and he was telling me all about it. And
Yeah. I think with irons, every 5 or 7 years, they come out with revolutionary.
That's what the guy at Gulf headquarters tried to tell me about the driver head. He said the technology is so much better than the ping answer. I said, and I said, well, that's 10 years old. I can't have a hard time believing there's that kind of technology that really gives any results. But
Yeah.
the pros are hitting it for 400 yards, so I guess something's happening.
my son did a bunch of demos and said everything he hit with the new stuff was much longer than his old stuff. Everything.
Well, I've got a demo set of Titleist, new Titleist to try and see if that helps, but we'll see. All right, well, you wanna talk about that card fee thing?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. If somebody hops on, if 2 more people hop on, we can go back and approve the minutes and do what we need to do. But we've got staff here. It looks like Troy, Shanna, and Penny. So we can skip to item number 2 with Troy, and he can give us the monthly updates, rounds, revenue for carts, green fees, all that good stuff. So, Mr. Hendricks, whenever you're ready, sir.
Thanks. As we sent out the first part of October, the rounds report, we are up 6% at the end of September and year to date for rounds, which is very good considering where we were at the end of May. We've been very busy. Once we got back to what our normal here in July, or just before the 4th of July weekend, for the months of July, August, and September, our rounds are actually up over those same 3 months last year by over 13,000 rounds, which was very good. When we look at our memberships, they have kind of leveled off a little bit at the end of September. We're at 1,164 memberships, 152 adult, 104 couples, 74 juniors, 174 young adults, and 660 seniors. When we go back and kind of look at where we were at with the old pass plan, we had less than 15 couples memberships, less than 30 junior memberships, about 40 young adult memberships. We had more seniors, but I think part of the switch over a little bit is with the couples membership, they've gone back to being a couples membership on that. So I think what we're seeing of the young adult growth is what we were looking for, is to get those young golfers that are looking for places to play our facilities. And I think that we're doing that. And then the juniors, if we can get the juniors to play, then they will then continue to play at our facilities. When we look at the projections for revenue and expenditures, I know we had this discussion at the last golf committee meeting that what we are billing for our memberships is greater than what we would bring in December of last year, but I've left it that same way in this report, just so we're consistent with how the budget office is doing things. So we're projecting year end at the October, November, and December. Our projections would be about $3.5 million. I can tell you as of today, we're up over 150,000 already for what we projected our revenue for October to be. So we're at about 410 to 420,000 right there for projections for this month. So we are up there. We're still projecting the same expenses for the last 3 months. So we could be, our net income could be $250,000 to $300,000 at year end. So that's a good thing. Equipment replacement fund, again, we're still projecting to right with what we have built so far this month, and there would be about 80,000 plus the November billings would put us about 119,000. So we should be in about the same ballpark as the last 2 years there as well. Concessions were up for the division by 14%. Sim was up 15%. Auburn Hills was down 3%. McDonald was up 83%, and Texas was pretty much break even at 1% increase. Green fees were up even without calculating in the membership fees. When you calculate those in, we're up 51%. So we're seeing a lot more. As I was saying, we're up 13,000 rounds, but in that 3 month period. But we also seen a 20% increase in regular regular rates, not discounted rates or season pass rates or membership rates, but an additional 20% we're paying our regular rates. Our cart rentals are up 32% for the month. At all the courses, the breakdowns there, Max seems to be leading still there at about 54% up. followed by Sim at 28%, Texas Solver at 20, and Auburn Hills is at 31. Driving range, this is what's really fun, and an interesting number is that for those 3 months compared to last year's 3 months, we're up about $50,000 in driving range revenue for the months of July, August, and September. So we're seeing a lot of people that were not new to golf playing, hitting balls, and those that were the fringe players that were maybe playing 1 or 2 times a year that have come back and are playing more often. They're using the range more often. So that's a lot. That's a really good sign of where we like to think that golf. So that's kind of where we're at on revenues and the membership.
Can I ask you about the numbers that 140,000 in the black? Does that accommodate the savings that you're getting from the recently started furloughs, or does that include that?
The furloughs were projected into the budget earlier this year. They were also projected into what we're looking at when we're doing our projections, is we're actually using the actual expenses from 2019 calculated into that as well. So yes, that would be calculated into that already. Yep.
Is there any possibility of, our perception is that morale is really bad on the golf courses. You're overworked, they're all overworked. It's kind of a tough time, and then the furloughs stack onto there. Is any chance of using that 100,000 and that you're in the black and alleviating some of the furloughs?
I'll answer that. And so, in working with the budget office and the city manager, the expectation was that we were going to use those furloughs just to make sure that we stay in the black, just to make sure that we cover all of our expenses and unexpected expenses as well. So that was something that we shared with the staff from the very beginning, and we also shared with the staff to be expecting this with the meeting that we had with them earlier this summer. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise. We wanted to make sure that they knew about this way ahead of time.
Troy, I see furloughs is on the agenda's next item. Maybe we can finish this item, and then you guys can tell us exactly when, where, and how those furloughs are going to look. Because I'm not so sure I don't agree with Dale on maybe we ought to rethink it or do something maybe a little different.
The furlough plan, we'll move on to furloughs. The furlough plan is the golf courses will remain open. We will not be closing a golf course. The golf courses that have a golf professional at them, we will have them covered. Auburn Hills, which will be Auburn Hills and McDonald, they will be covered those weeks by either one of the assistants or by Shane. Be out there covering those golf courses to make sure everything still runs and functions the way it should be. So it should not have any direct effect upon our customers. I know that was people were upset a little bit last year because we had courses closed, and so this year we've tried to work it out to where we wouldn't have to close them.
What is the furlough plan? How long for each one?
Everybody will be furloughed for 4 weeks. They're going to be furloughed 2 weeks between this week and the end of December, and then they'll be furloughed 2 weeks between the 1st of January and the 1st week of March.
Are they allowed to use their vacation time to kind of offset the financial penalty?
No, not.
No, that would not change the bottom line. That actually would add to the expense. And so that was actually something that I had worked on with the city manager to see if we could do that last year, and was not allowed to do that. Just for the record, just want to let you guys know, it's not necessarily our prerogative or our interest to go through with these furloughs. We tried everything we can to delay them, to find other ways to make sure that we can get past them. I'm not necessarily supportive of them. I know it is a hardship with our staff, but given the direction that we're going and the direction I've gotten from the budget office as well as the city manager's office, we had budgeted those from the very beginning, and the expectation was that we were going to follow through with them just to make sure that we stay in the black. We've always had unexpected expenses at the end of the fiscal year. We want to make sure that we stay in the black.
What's the exact amount of the savings from the furloughs?
For the 8-week period, for the everybody, it's going to be about a $90,000 savings.
So if you cut it in half and only did 2 weeks, then you'd be looking at 45,000. And your projections are that you have $140,000 today, and your projections are by the end of the year based on October and the amount of revenue coming in November and December from memberships, even if you don't have a strong weather those 2 months, that you're going to be somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 in total net profit. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if you only furloughed them 1 week and 1 week instead of 2 weeks and 2 weeks, the financial impact should not be significant. And $45,000. Here's the problem I have. These guys, and I'm around, and Dale can attest to it as well. They've worked so hard over the last 4 months because they were shorthanded. They couldn't hire anybody. So they worked double hours, double time on salary to really put a profit into the golf system. And their reward for that is, oh, by the way, take off a couple weeks and then take off another couple weeks and you don't get paid for it. I think there's a philosophical problem with that. I think that if you were showing negative numbers, and the manager in the budget office, from what I understand, are somewhat responsible for the closures in a month that would have increased profits another 200,000 or 300,000. So, I think to put that burden on those employees it's really inexcusable and unnecessary with the condition that we're in right now.
Yeah, if I could, that's well said, Greg, and I agree with every part of that. But also, I'd like to note you've got some senior employees, and they have done a remarkable job. Those courses are in spectacular shape, given the resources they've had. The pro shops are holding it together with little help. I hope we don't lose people. That would be being penny wise and pound foolish if we save a few bucks and then you drove off some really good people. And I hope that's just something you can communicate to the manager, that if that happens, that falls back on these kind of circumstances. It's hard to find somebody who will work as hard as these people are working. I mean, they are golf addicts like us for the most part, and that just hope that's appreciated. So, but I agree with Greg 100%.
Well, we truly appreciate their work. We've recognized them and shared with them their how much we appreciate their work. I mean, we've talked about this in every one of our meetings with them, that they're indispensable, and we're working as hard as we can to make sure that they're protected in the short term and the long term, dealing with what the future might hold.
But talk won't pay the rent. That's the problem. And I'm glad you're doing that. It's great to have that reinforcement, but money is money.
Yeah, that's half of the battle. I know we can't take any formal action, but I think the entire golf committee would agree that we should send, and we can do it in an email if you can want to send an email out to everybody and ask them. But I think it's reasonable. It's financially prudent. You're not putting yourself in a bad situation if you cut those furloughs in half and you do 1 week and 1 week instead of 2 and 2. And I think you need to go back to the manager and say, hey, our golf committee is strongly opposed. Financial situation is better, and we really can get by with a week and a week. And if we need to make some adjustments come March, we can look at that, but I just don't think it's necessary. And I really think it's criminal almost to ask people to work double time and then to cut them at the end of the year.
So here's what I'm going to ask you, Greg, is if you guys You don't necessarily have to do a formal action, but you guys can each individually send me an email, and I'll take that with my perspective and have a discussion with the city manager.
Definitely will do that. You'll have that as soon as we get off this call.
Okay. Yeah, I think it has to be, since you guys are in a quorum and you guys are going to vote, an individual email from the three of you. And I see that Richard's on the call. I think he's listening. Maybe he can do that as well if he agrees with you guys. I'm sure he does. So that would give me the ammunition I need to take it to the next level.
And one other consideration, there is this elephant in the room, the idea of First Tee taking over the courses, that if some major change is going to take place on the first of the year, it kind of diminishes the need for you to end up in the black at this point. I mean, if you're guaranteed you're going into 2021 and 2022, I can see that there's something to consider.
Well, I agree on everything about the furloughs. And Troy, I'll send you an email as soon as we hop off this call opposing the 2-and-2 furlough. And obviously, if you need anything from me or the rest of this committee, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to help. That's why we're here. So
yeah, that'd be great, because then I can actually address it with Mark Manning and the budget office, and really kind of focus in on that first step and then take it to the city manager. That'd be great.
Okay. Can we go back to the cart rental thing real quickly? AJ wanted a couple of these items addressed. Have you looked at, in that report, there's a mention of the pass, a yearly pass kind of thing. Has that got some legs, and is that, is it worth talking about what level of increase might be practical at this point?
The cart fees and the potential pass, that's what this committee asked for us to put together some information and bring back to the committee. So what we did was we looked at, for comparisons, we pulled the 9 golf courses that I sent to you guys with the information of what their full cart fees and their half cart fees were, their 9-hole fees, and the 9-hole half carts were. As you can see, based on that, City of Wichita is at the lowest range on there. Then I pulled out, based on 2019's rounds and rentals, that if there was a $1 increase from $1,250 to $1,350, we would make an additional $75,000. If it was a $1.50 increase up to $14 cart rental, it would be $145,953. And then the same thing with $250, it would be $223,000. $350 would be $300,000, and $450 would be $378,000. So my suggestion, I mean, I just put this all down for you guys to have some food for thought for discussion purposes, was that if we raise the fees up to $15, that all would remain in operations. And if we went over that amount, then it would be split 50-50 between golf cart replacement fund and a golf cart path replacement fund, similar to what we're doing now for the equipment replacement fund to buy equipment for the superintendent. So that was all just put together for you guys to have some discussion with. That was just a starting point, so to speak.
Well, I thought that comparison was good, all those area courses and Lincoln, and we are under all those rates, so it would be defensible, I would think, to add $1 and say all you're doing is remaining competitive with your surrounding courses. That would seem like that would be a defendable and appropriate strategy.
Dale, are you talking about $1 per person or $1 per total?
$1 per rental. I mean, it's if Troy said if you raised it $1, it would generate what, 100,000,
which would be $1 per person.
No,
go from $12.50 per person to $13.50.
What would you think about taking it to $14? So, which is a nice round number and gives you that extra. I don't be well. We're still going to be way low, and I don't think we're going to be out of line at $14 instead of $13. I don't know that that's or $13.50. I don't think that 50 cents makes a lot of difference, and frankly, most people just soon pay 14 as $13.50. I don't ride much, so it's that's why I'm asking you, Dale. I know your guys ride a lot more than my guys do.
Yeah, I've got some that have to ride, that bad knees and whatever, and it's a big deal to them. It seems like, just looking at that chart though, comparing to area courses, that half cart fee is, we're on the lowest on the list. So maybe phasing it in, maybe a dollar this year and projecting that it goes to 14 the next year or something like that. I don't know. That's a marketing question. You have to, I don't know that you lose money. There's a rule of thumb about what you lose when you raise prices. That's always an economic dynamic. But given the demand and given where golf is going now, it seems like this is the appropriate time to do it. How about that annual thing? AJ had communicated to me, he wanted to ask about the wisdom perhaps of allowing instead of a monthly charge, that you would allow people to pay an annual fee that would give them that cart access, and what that number might have to be.
Well, again, that's why I put in the information pertaining to like a cart membership that gave, we were able to pull out of our point of sale system the amount of revenue that's been brought in by the different membership classes, which you can see that since August of 19 through the end of September of 20, our memberships have brought in about $400,000 in cart revenue. That needs to be clarified a little bit in that, for example, Dale, when you come in and play, if you pay for your cart at that time, it's tied to your name. But if you came in and paid just your greens fee, or came in and checked in, since you have a membership as well too, and came back in and everybody was going to ride, and you decided you were going to ride and came back in, they're probably just going to ring you up for a cart rental and not tie it to your name. So this is the numbers I'm able to pull that have been tied to people's names. If that makes sense. Because
I didn't get that at all. How is it different if
because they're not going to put your name in the point of sale system to tie a green cart fee to your name. They're just going to hit cart fee $12.50 and ring you up. I've watched them do it. I know how they do it. So they're not going to necessarily associate your name to a cart fee when you come in and pay after you've already paid your greens fee and checked in.
So that a cart fee rental wouldn't be credited to the cart fee account?
No, it would be, but it's not tied to your account when I'm searching by your name to find out how many cart rentals you have.
Oh, yeah, well, that's, as long as you've got the big number, I don't care. That's understand.
So we're looking at $405,000 with 60% of that, a little more than 60% being paid by the senior memberships. They've paid of that $405,000. They've contributed $252,000, almost $253,000 to that. So I also put a breakdown in there of rounds played by membership types. We have other communities such as Lincoln, Winfield, Hutchison, Cheney, and Heston. They all have annual cart memberships. I didn't see on their information as to whether they had couples memberships for their carts, because we could have a couple that wants to get a couples membership for a cart. So that's why I put those on there. I put it down to be, like I said, as a starting point. I put it down as $100 a month. And we could do it. That's up to the golf committee to come up with a recommendation. It's not necessarily what I'm thinking, but when for these other facilities, ours are much lower. Carts are a add-on. You aren't required to take a cart. So to me, that not everybody has to take it. So
Well, if you went, you note in there a possible $100 a month for a single cart pass, that would be $1,200 a year. Lincoln's 800, Quail Ridge is 800. That would be considerably more than they're charging. You don't want to lose.
His
Is
point
that their
was,
annual revenue? Is that a one-time payment at the beginning of the year, Troy? What we're
We
seeing
do
for
it just
Quail
like we're
Ridge?
doing our current cart pass, our current membership. It'd be billed on a monthly basis.
Do we have the ability to, on a case-by-case basis, if somebody wants to pay for it up front, maybe it's $950, or if they want to go month to month, maybe it's $100 a month. Do we have that option?
We had this conversation when we talked about the membership plan. And we're able to do the memberships very effectively with how we do can run it through the point of sale system to do the ACH charges. And we can make that work every month, so it's pretty consistent. That process is about a 5-hour process when we start doing that. And granted, that's just 1 day a week. But if you split it up where they could play it up front, and then you've got 2 different types of billing cycles going on, which can be confusing. So in order to keep things simple, I would think we'd want to keep it in the same format that we're billing the memberships.
Okay.
I think Dale's point was is that our memberships are lower than their memberships, therefore, the value would still be the same. So we raise the membership fee, then maybe you could lower the cart fee. But I think that's what he was saying is when you compared Lincoln's membership fees to our membership fees, that we're paying less in Wichita than they are in Lincoln. Therefore, the cart fees may be less. And there's a little difference. I've never been crazy about the idea of a cart fee, so I don't care how high it is. If somebody plays that much and it's a convenience, then fine, we can figure out a number there. But it needs to be high enough that it's not going to, because carts, we have a limited number. And while we have a limited number of tee times, you can figure, if you got 4, you can squeeze a 5th in, or if you have 3, you can squeeze a 4th person in to that tee time. But when you only have 85 carts, you can't make it too cheap, or you're going to be in trouble with not having enough carts. So you've got to be able to have the revenue to make up for it. I think it's a hard one to get that number correct.
I'm looking, when I look at the spreadsheet, we don't have enough, in my mind, I don't think we have enough good information in looking at the numbers. Because we're only talking about, we're up to the 1,100 memberships. And when you look at the growth of each month, when you look at August of last year, when we first started the memberships, you had $35,000 spent in cart fees, where August of 2020, you had $66,000 spent. So we don't have any consistent data really in my mind to look at. So.
And I would say that's probably true, and that nobody has to buy the cart membership. They can still pay on a cart-to-cart basis, unless they look at it and they go, wow, I just really don't want to have to mess with it, number one. And number two, I'm playing 10 times a month, so it's worth it to me, especially if we go to $14 or whatever, $13.50. So if I'm paying, 10 times a month, then $13.50 times, that's $1,350, $100 a month's a good deal. But if you're only playing 6 times a month, it's not a good deal. Everybody'd have to determine whether or not it was a good deal. I don't think it matters what the price is each individual is going to determine if it's a good deal for them or not. And if it is, they're going to do it. If they're not, they're not. So, I think raising the cart fee is important because, that's a base membership, that's a base fee that we get revenues from. This is something new, and, whatever it is, it is. So that's my opinion.
Well, it seems like the raising the basic fee, as you just said, is like step one, and really no reason to not put that forward as a recommendation at some point, maybe at the start of the year or whenever. Again, this whole thing's in a state of flux. We don't know what we're dealing with, but that would seem to be a sellable point, that a $1 increase, $12.50 to $13.50 or 14, as you said, keeps us competitive, and obviously there's a need to raise revenue. So
Hey, Dale, when is your next park board meeting?
it'd be December, second Monday of
Be here in November.
Tuesdays.
You have one in November?
Yes.
Well, I think you guys should bring it up in November to take effect either December 1 or January 1. There's no reason to wait on it. I think it needs to be, done as soon as possible, and that money coming in. And that's another reason, if you're bringing in some extra revenues, that maybe you can offset some of those furlough questions, as you've immediately, if you got December, January, and February of additional cart revenues, it'll help offset the whole furlough question. And that's another reason that Troy, when he goes to the manager, can say, hey, they're taking some action to get us some extra revenue, therefore we don't need necessarily to furlough it more than 1 week each time instead of 2.
Eddie, would the park board advance a recommendation to the council without a formal recommendation from the Golf Advisory Committee? I can see them because you're not going to have that because we aren't enough people to vote on it.
Yeah, maybe it's something we send out in an email to the Golf Advisory Committee members, because our next park board meeting is November 9th, if I'm not mistaken. So I think
those email meetings are illegal, Eddie. It's really difficult to function in this environment, but you can't do that serial vote thing. I mean, you could.
We can't take a vote via email.
No,
you have to do a meeting notice, and you have to convene.
Okay.
But Dale, I don't think it matters. I mean, the park board has the absolute authority to make that recommendation to raise those rates to the city council with or without the golf advisory board. So if if you and Eddie say, and it was brought up at the last meeting and it seemed to be a positive, if you bring it up at the park board meeting and say, hey, we think it's that the advisory board, everybody that was at the meeting was not opposed to it, and we can forward that to the city council now, and still the park board has the authority to forward it, and the city council has to enact it.
I'd probably add the caveat about alleviating part of the furloughs as a part of that package, that you're trying to find a way to do that. This extra revenue from carts might help make that possible. If Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Hauptman would support that as from the staff perspective to the park board as well, that'd be important.
I've got a question about the additional revenue coming in from a cart fee increase. Are furloughs, do they fall under the blanket of operations? Because I'm seeing, these additional funds will go into operations, and then once it's above, what is it, $15, Troy, it'll split 50-50 between.
Yeah, that was just a
recommendation.
Okay. Yes, it would go into operations. I was just trying to think of a way that we could put some money into, like we're doing with the superintendents for maintenance equipment, is a way to put some money into an account to be able to start repairing some of our cart paths down the road.
Sure.
So that's why I just picked $15, because $15 is kind of the midpoint of everybody that's on this 9-course spreadsheet. So.
Okay. Well, I think this discussion, both of these topics, very important, and they kind of go hand in hand. So I agree with Dale that I think we should bring both of these issues up to the park board. And if somebody feels uncomfortable that we don't have a quorum right now, they can. What's that, Greg?
They should have been here then.
Right.
Yeah,
right. So I would ask staff to get that on the agenda for November 9th in the park board meeting, and Dale and Troy and I can kind of talk about that with the rest of the board members on the park board. So
There seem to be a lot of cart maintenance issues right now as well. Mr. Hendricks, are we keeping pace with, a lot of carts are down at Mac, and I think even the new fleets seems like there's a lot of maintenance needs right now. Are we?
Last time I checked with our staff, Auburn Hills had one cart that was down and it's since been fixed. I think we've got 6 carts or 7 carts over at Mac that still need batteries. Of the 30 carts that had needed batteries, we've replaced the others. All the carts were running at Sim, and I believe they were all running over at Tex Consolver last time I checked.
Well, that's good to hear. And that issue of single riders has to fit into here at some point too. And I don't know when. The COVID numbers are terrible. It's a tough time to sell going to 2 people in a cart, because that really is a proximity question that has some valid concerns. But I know isn't there a direct revenue aspect to the single rider cart? Can you put a number to that about what that costs the system to do that?
It's not really, I mean, there's a fuel cost, yes, but it's not,
Just
if I were to
as long as
guess,
you can.
if I were to guess, you're probably looking at $3,000 or $4,000 in additional fuel costs.
Okay, all right, that's not, there's enough carts generally to meet the need right now. Is that not the case?
We have 72 carts at Tex Consolver, 72 carts at Auburn Hills, 72 carts at Sim, and I believe we have 68 at Mac.
How often do you run out of carts on a busy weekend? Has that happened at all this year?
Every day.
Really, every day?
Yeah.
I can tell you, you play earlier, Dale, so you don't have this problem, but not even on weekends.
Really?
I don't play on weekends. On a Friday and a Monday, twice, there were not carts available for people in my group that needed to ride. And we actually had to push, let some other people go ahead of us because the carts got in. And it's all because of single riders. And I understand the COVID issue, but I think that there are some people that are doing single riders that don't have to. They just do it out of convenience, because then they go out the cars and they sit and not 6 feet apart, and they don't really care. It's just a convenience issue. There are some people that do care, so you can't really discriminate in that. And I don't know how you figure that out, but I recommended at the last meeting that, and I don't agree with Troy, and he and I are always going to disagree, that if you have a threesome, that the third guy should not pay any more than the other 2 guys, even though he's a single cart. I just don't believe that that's right or fair. Nobody I know, no course I've ever played, charges a full cart for a single, or even 80% that I've ever played. They just charge you whatever that half cart fee is per person. But I do believe that you should have a surcharge if somebody requests to ride by themselves for $1.
Greg, we do that now. Isn't that, if you're a threesome and 2 are in a cart, the third person doesn't pay full price, does he, Troy?
Under this recommendation, he does. Did you not read it?
No.
I guess I missed that. I'm sorry.
It was number 3 on the list, that once we go back to not having to wear masks, there was a suggestion that we go to a single rider cart fee that would be 80% of whatever our regular full cart would be.
I see. Yeah, I'd agree with Craig. That's not, that doesn't make any sense.
I know that prior to 2008, from the time when I came here and we opened up Auburn Hills, up until 2008, we did charge single rider carts because that was what was in place in the contracts for the contract pros at the time when Auburn Hills opened. And that just carried over until, even when they were gone, that carried over until the Golf Advisory Committee in 2008 made the recommendation, and it was voted on to eliminate the single rider carts.
And one of the
because nobody else does it. It's just not right to charge somebody double because there's only 3 of them and not 5 or
right,
4.
and can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
One of the reasons that we stopped the practice was that we were literally losing quite a few people to the private courses. And I left the system and joined a country club because that seemed to be massively unfair to me. But we ended up with the opposite effect that we're trying to do now. And one of the things that is working for us is the fact that people have, with the membership system, more money to spend, and I think they are spending it. And so I think that before we enter into a system like that, we need to make absolutely sure that what effect it's going to have on the membership.
Now, Greg, you'd asked the question about what are the additional costs associated with the single rider carts. It's not necessarily what the additional costs are, it's the additional damage to the golf course.
I understand the concept, but I don't believe that you can rationally do something that nobody else that I know of does just because they used to do it because the pros could do it back when they were making all the money on the carts. That's the reason we did it. But there isn't any place I've ever played anywhere that charges a different amount if there's one person or two people in that cart. They just charge you a fee for the green fee in the cart. And it's the same price. So I don't think we can, as a golf system, say, well, there aren't that many cases. I mean, the group I play with, one guy has to ride. He can't walk. The rest of us walk. But to charge that guy $25 or now $28, that didn't even make sense. I mean, it's just not right because the poor guy can't walk. And Dale has guys in his group that can't walk, and I'm sure there are times you have 3 or 5, Dale, and that fifth guy shouldn't be paying more than the other guys are playing. I understand what you're saying about damage to the golf course, and I understand about the cost and all that.
Mine was
It just isn't right.
Mine was more pertaining to all the single rider carts.
The single rider carts are ridiculous. I mean, I understand, and I said last meeting that you should have a surcharge if somebody specifically asks for a single rider. So if there are 2 or 3 or 4 people come up and they want 4 carts, give them 4 carts. Just charge them $2 extra per cart. Some people will pay it, and some people will, I'll ride with my buddy that I'm going to go sit in the car with after the meeting and after the golf course. I'll go ahead and I don't want to pay the $2. So you may free up 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 or 10 carts. That's what I was saying, is that you should charge a fee if somebody specifically wants to ride in a cart by themselves.
One of the things you talk about the damage to the course. I sent a memo in and never got an answer on it. I have observed the fact that everybody goes straight down the middle of the course. Nobody does a 90 degree, and as far as I know, no course has really tried to educate the members as to what 90 degree means, and basically say that we're going to enforce it, which means that you go back to the cart path and then you go down and back over. It doesn't mean go along the rough until you get to your next, unless that's what you want. But I think we can cut a lot of that damage down, but nobody does 90 degrees. I mean, literally. There might be, maybe one, I'll see one cart other than mine that does it, and on any round. Everybody just blows right down through the middle.
I'm having trouble with the damage aspect. I mean, at Auburn Hills, Scott Weller was making a point about the carts were doing tremendous damage, and I went out and played 18 holes and looked at every hole and tried to see. I mean, I'm not a golf maintenance professional, but I could see no areas around the greens that you would attribute to cart damage.
Well, here's a good example. When Sim was closed for those 7 weeks in the spring, before we reopened, I was over there visiting with Grant. And he made the comment. He goes, I've seen grass in places that's grown in places where it never is during the golf season because the golf carts all drive that same path. I believe his example was over by in front of 7 Green, where you've got 7 Green and what is it, 15 Green are both kind of side by side there, and those that come off of 15 Green cut right in front of that bunker and right in front of 7 Green to go over to the tee box on 17, rather than going around the cart path behind the green to get to the tee box. And so they've worn that grass off in front of that bunker because that's a straight shot to get to the next tee box.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look at that tomorrow because I play that all the time. I just don't. I know Grant's got a professional look at it and has high standards, but I just don't see the courses. That's
Yeah, but
big,
that
you know.
still begs my point about educating the people and basically saying that that is a requirement, and say it's tearing up the courses. And if you can't seem to understand what 90 degrees, we're going to give you the opportunity to walk.
And the superintendents have done a good job. They do a very good job in trying to control the cart traffic. They've put up ropes and stakes and put them up. And we have golfers that when I was at Auburn Hills, when some of this, we had stakes and ropes that got tangled around the axles on the carts because the golfers would just drive through them because they didn't want to go around them, and they would come tangled up in under the carts when they would come in from playing. So, we deal with a lot of unique characters. How's that?
I understand, but literally though, Troy, nobody is doing cart path 90 degrees. Nobody. I'm sorry. I play all the courses.
I know they don't
And
know what it means.
That's why I wrote the email, is because I made it a point to observe as I was going around to the courses, and there was nobody doing it. So we ought to start with the idea that before we start charging them for something that is kind of abstract and not tied to what we're hoping to get, let's address the problem directly and literally say this is a 90-degree course and you are required to do 90 degrees. And I think the vast majority of golfers will do it. Not everybody.
Yeah, I think you're right, Richard. I think when they check in and say, hey, I just want to remind you 90 degrees means, you don't drive down the middle of the fairway to your ball. So please, follow that. And I think you just reinforce that every time you hand them a key, and sooner or later it'll start sinking.
I can find some stuff for that.
What's that?
I can find some stuff that we can get out to the golf pros to put at the golf courses.
Yeah, I played Colbert Hills a couple weekends ago, and they've got a system where you leave the tee box and you have to ride a cart there. You can't walk that course, and they have 2 poles that mark an entrance under the fairway. So everybody who enters the fairway enters at the same spot. That place, that's worn out. That one little spot's worn out, but that keeps them from, it's kind of what Richard's saying about a 90 degrees, if they don't care about the 90 degree.
That's the same. They do the same thing at Flint Hills. They have the gates that they want you to drive the carts in the fairway, not in the rough. So you enter the gates into the fairway, and then when you get to the green, they have the pole system there as well, and that's where it takes you up to the cart path around the greens.
And I don't want to get into a long discussion about it, but there are some philosophies say that you're better off if you have Zoysia and Bermuda, you're better off driving in the fairway, because you're driving across the rough, you're beating it down because that grass doesn't handle the carts as well. So 90 degrees isn't the best way to do it. I mean, we can argue about this stuff all day, but I don't think that's the important question. The important question is it fair and right to charge somebody that happens to be playing by themselves a full cart rental? And I say no, and that's, I think, what we need to, we can talk about all this other stuff when we have a full group, but I don't think it matters right now.
If there was a meeting, I'd second that, Greg. I think you're absolutely right. That's the big deal is the money thing. That Bishop, where you drive a golf cart is kind of up to the golf professional to try to make that work on his course and do what you got to do. But you're right. It's the fee thing is the number one right now, and I don't want to spend time on the rest of it right now.
And I think the memberships next week can bring those up again when we get a full group and talk, a little bit more and maybe get some more information. But I think the 2 biggest issues are the furloughs and raising the cart fees. And again, if you guys bring up the cart fees, and want to bring up a single rider surcharge of a couple dollars, that's up to the park board, and I think it's a good idea, but you guys may not agree with that, and I don't have a problem with it. I think it would discourage some people that don't really, if you really feel strongly, then you're going to pay the $2. You're not going to worry about it. If you don't feel strongly about it, you're not going to pay the $2, and you're going to save some of the carts because it's not about the course. It's not about the wear and tear. It's about having enough golf carts for people who want to play golf. And with the single riders, we're not having that. And, so if there's a solution to that, then, maybe if not, you get a little extra revenue without it.
So part of that number 3 on there also talked about once we get the mask mandate over, we're going to go back to 2 riders per cart. So when the mask mandate for the county expires here in December, our plan is to go back to 2 riders per cart.
Guess what? It's going to be renewed, and it'll be renewed till at least, my guess is June. We're entering a period that is going to be at least forecasted to be, we need to make sure that our courses are still going to be allowed to be opened and not closed like what happened last year that almost devastated us. And so I think the mask rule is going to stay, and I think we need to support it.
Well, since you brought it up, I played one of our courses 2 weeks ago. We were settling up about 1 o'clock in the clubhouse. 10 young men walked in, all of them in the 20s. And to pay their green fees, not a one wearing a mask. No social distancing, just piling. I thought about putting it up on Facebook Live and say, here, I don't want to challenge anybody. That's just a bad scenario. And I talked to the pro, and he said, we're just told we can't be jerks about it. We're just going to take the money and hope that people do it. But this is a problem. The numbers, as Richard said, are going through the roof again. And another one of your pros, I related to him, he said the problem is one staff member gets sick and you're going to shut the course down. You'd have to quarantine all the staff, and we're at risk of losing courses to that. I don't know what the solution is other than a hard and fast rule. You do not walk in that clubhouse without a mask and enforce it.
Richard and Dale's pretty easy. If they come up to the counter to pay, you send them out to the car, say, hey, you need to go get your mask. Everybody's got a mask in their car. There's nobody that doesn't have a mask in their car. Say, I'm sorry, you need to go out to your car and get a mask, and just tell your pros and everybody. Part of your problem, though, just so you know, is that not all the employees are wearing masks either.
I know. I saw that one of the courses as well.
It's thing that you really need, Troy, to get on your people, because everybody that works in one of those places needs to have a mask on. And I hate them.
I've been into the clubhouses and they've not been wearing masks. I've reminded both them and the golf professionals that they're supposed to have their staff wearing masks, and they're supposed to be wearing masks.
But I don't think that those 10 guys there, that pro does not think that downtown's got his back if he goes to the mat with this and say, he's got to be, they're saying like the police don't want to enforce it. I don't blame them. It's a horrible thing. I hate the mask, but you have to do it. But if we're going to control the numbers going forward, and Richard's right, the numbers are going up, we shouldn't be backing off. So that one person a cart thing is not going to go. I think Richard's right about that too. That's not going to go away. But we got to do a better job of protecting our golf courses and the staff.
But Dale, it's easy. If they'll have their back if they send a memo out and say, hey, don't take any money from anybody who doesn't have a mask on.
Right. And it's the law.
And we have had staff. We've had some of our golf staff quarantined here throughout the summer, so it hasn't shut the golf courses down. So,
well, you're going to make a less safe environment. I'm going to get nervous about it, and I'm nervous about it right now. We try to aggressively social distance when we play, but if it starts to go bad, I don't want to lose the golf courses.
I'm not one that is that's strong on it one way or the other. But what I do know is that it's not hard to enforce. And if the reason that those 10 guys walk in is because they know it's not enforced. If you send one guy out and say, hey, you don't have your mask on, you need to go get it on, I guarantee you it's going to get around. Hey, you got to have a mask on to get inside. Right now, the word is you don't have to have a mask on to get inside. So
Yeah, I
if
agree.
you don't take money from anybody that doesn't have a mask on, when they come to the counter, that I guarantee you, they're not going to leave the golf course. And if they do, let them leave. I mean, the 10 people that you're going to lose, you're probably better off from a health standpoint. So send them on their way. But just tell them, hey, I'm sorry, you have, if you say, don't take any money. And that's an easy thing for you to do, Troy. Send an email. Do not take, one, make sure everybody in your place has a mask on. And two, don't take any money from anybody that doesn't have a mask on.
Well, how about, Troy, maybe a little more aggressive signage that you put up there that says that employee will lose his job if he doesn't enforce the mask. And if that's really prominent displayed, I don't think any golfer is gonna, if that's what the staff person says, if I get caught serving people without a mask, I'm gonna lose my job. It's gotta have that kind of teeth to it and that kind of prominence in display. I'd put up a much bigger sign to start with at the counter and on the front doors. Those signs now, you know, masks are required, are just not maybe enough to get their attention. And it's a very tiny minority that aren't doing it, but all it takes is some bad apples.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make that point. Thank you.
All right. Did AJ have a question about the cart
AJ,
membership?
you got anything else you want to add here? AJ? He must have went to get a drink or something. No, he's good, I think. He's been texting me along, and most of these points we've covered. So he says he's good.
All right. Well, it's about 5:05 right now. Is there anything else that we want to chat about while we have everybody
I
on?
have one question, and that is, it took me 20 minutes to get in. How were the numbers last month?
Yeah, I got to run, Eddie. Thank you.
See you, Dale.
Our numbers at the end of, you want just the projections, Richard? Is that what you're asking about?
Just the numbers for October. I mean September.
Okay. Through the first 9 months, our revenue was $3,081,000, and our expenses were $2,641,000. So we're about $130,000 to the good, or $113,000 to the good. So far this month, I'm going to guess that we're going to end up about $150,000 over what was budgeted for the month of October. So that's going to put us around $260,000 to the good going into November and December.
Okay, so we're in good shape.
Yes.
And the only thing that, as far as what to do with any increased money, I hope that one of the considerations is to look long term and try to figure out if we can create a fund that we could use to bond to do some larger projects.
I agree. Eddie, you want to send me an email as to what you want to do in the way of for the park board? I'll put some stuff together and send it back to you.
Yep.
I'm here tomorrow, and then I've got I'm using my 2 days of vacation on Thursday and Friday to do some stuff for the PGA that I'm on our national board. So I've got that to do on Thursday and Friday, and then I'm furloughed next week. So send it to me anyway, and I'll get some stuff put together for you while I'm off.
Yep. If I don't get it to you tonight, I'll do it tomorrow. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks a lot.
Anything else, guys?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Eddie.